Are you a helpless romantic that thrives in melancholy, have a high imagination, and you're really looking to expand or get inside your deepest parts of yourself? Are you tired of hearing the same old goth bands that you hear constantly? Did you know that there was a romantic aspect of 90s? It wasn't just about the whole romantic goth outfits that you see online, but it was a specific subgenre that established itself within the goth community. Let's go ahead and discuss about Ethereal wave and my story, how I ended up immersing myself within the subculture because of this genre. When I started getting into goth music, I was about 14 years old. The very first goth bands that I listened to was Bauhaus, Alien Sex Fiend, Susie and the Banshees, but there was just one particular band that really hit home for me. Growing up in my late childhood, early teenage years, I was really trying to discover myself and create myself and find a form of identity. It was really hard for me around that time because I grew up in a very dysfunctional household, but I was still trying to discover myself through music. When I was in middle school, it all started in middle school, and in 6th grade, I was really trying to find who I was as a person. I ended up befriending a group of friends, and we were also trying to discover ourselves, and we had a passion for a band named Garbage, and Garbage was one of my favorite bands growing up. I was really into new metal, 90s alternative, and even new wave. And yes, I hate to admit this now, but the band that I was really into was Marilyn Manson. But in 7th grade, my whole world changed, and my family ended up relocating to the San Fernando Valley, which is 20 minutes away from Hollywood, California. And we ended up moving in the valley. That's what we just call it, the valley. We ended up moving to the valley, and I ended up getting transferred to middle school here. However, I fucking hated it. I hated it so much. I was very much alone. I spent actually in 8th grade. I ended up transferring over to a different middle school here in the San Fernando Valley in 8th grade. So my whole 8th grade, I was very lonely. I really was missing Hollywood and my old middle school. I was so sad that I wasn't able to attend high school in Hollywood High or at another school called Fairfax High, because I really wanted to be with my friends. So 8th grade for me was I was rediscovering myself all over again, and I was really starting to get into punk rock music around this time too. So I was really into the Ramones, I was really into Black Flag, Subhumans, Misfits, just to give you kind of an idea what I was getting myself into. I never really got into emo too much because even though I was gaining popularity around this time, however, I was into the Used, but I never really got into like My Chemical Romance. The only person I was hanging out with was my sister, and then I started making some friends, but those friends were like the outcast of the school, and they were either immigrants or they didn't know how to speak English. I ended up meeting like a couple friends that I no longer talk to now, but I ended up meeting my best friend in middle school, and we've been best friends for almost 20 years at this point. But we weren't too close because, again, I was just a new kid. There was this one particular moment too that, as I was getting into punk rock music, then I started getting into the rabbit hole of trying to find out what goth is. This was around 2005, 2006. We had computers, so if we wanted to go online, we had to go home, and being online, being in the internet was actually like something that I found a safe haven for. And YouTube was barely brand new, and then I think I just typed in like goth bands. The rest of it was history. That's how I found out Bauhaus, that's how I found out Susie, and I found Alien Sex Fiend and some other Batcave bands, and I was just like, oh my god, what is this? So like I was so excited. There was this one particular thumbnail that I saw, and it was very different from other bands that I've seen. The other thumbnails from other videos. So I clicked on it, and it was called Caroline Fingers. God, I was in heaven. It's like I knew right then and there this was home to me. It was that magic, like sparks. I started feeling dopamine rushing all over my body. I was just like, like it was like wonderful for me, and I was just so happy. Like I was just hearing Elizabeth Fraser's voice and Robert Guthrie's guitar. I was like astonished. I can't explain how the feeling it was, but it was just very magical for me. And right then and there, I knew I was home. I knew I was here to stay. I knew I found my subculture that I belonged in. And that's when I started kind of throwing away a lot of like t-shirts that I had. I stopped wearing, I had a DIY backpack that I made, and I stopped using that, and I just started buying black clothes. I even started working to buy some goth clothes. It was the best feeling ever. Like I felt like I was really like, I really belonged in this subculture, and it was like the happiest moments of my life. 14 to 18, I was still discovering music. I was really starting to get at other people, trying to find a community in the goth scene. And as I was approaching 18, I wanted to get into the goth clubs. However, the clubs around this time, they were very much 21 and over. There was only a handful of clubs that were 18 and over. I already knew like a little bit what goth was. I just really didn't know about it too much. Because I had an aunt who was very much into the subculture, and she would actually go to the clubs in Hollywood, and I would even go with her to go like buy her makeup, buy outfits, like to get ready for these club nights. But again, I really didn't know too much. I only knew surface level stuff about it, but not too much of the. So from 18 to 21, I actually started finding more of my friends that were also into around the same age range, and were also into the subculture and very passionate about it. Some of my friends that I'm still friends with to this very day. However, some of them were more into death rock, some of them were more into EBM and industrial, and I was just more into ethereal and dark wave and dream pop. And we just found a connection through the love of music and the love of the subculture. There was a couple of clubs that I did attend. The only club that I was able to go consistently was Das Bunker, because that was the only 18 and over club that was available around that time. And there was also Perversion too. So those were two clubs that I was constantly attending, because all the other clubs were 21 and over. There was two events that I will never forget that I actually attended, and it was called Club Resurrection, hosted by Coven 13. There was also a backyard gig that was around, that happened in 2009. Here's a picture of me attending that club night, that event. So a backyard gig is basically a event that happens in somebody's backyard, and they end up having a band that starts playing, or there's like a house party. But overall, it's just mostly like it's a band that plays at somebody's house in their backyard. The ones that would host backyard gigs were mostly punk shows, metal shows, or ska shows. Just preferred going to the clubs instead, because I just love dancing, and I wasn't really much of a person that liked to mosh anyways. Even during this time, it saddened me a little bit, because Ethereal wasn't popular by the time I discovered it. Genres that were more popular around this time was death rock because of the death rock resurgence in the early 2000s. There was also dark cabaret was very popular as well, and EM and aggro tech were very prominent during this time. I know that that's not part of the goth subculture, but it's basically the cousin of goth. So that was the only gateway that I had to participate in the scene. And sometimes it would cause a lot of friction for me being into ethereal music, because not a lot of people were into it. They knew about the bands, especially a lot of more the elder goths, they knew about these bands, but often felt very ostracized within the community here in LA, because I would hear two things: one, it's overrated, or two, it's too slow, I am not going to play that at the clubs. So I barely heard Cocktail Twins at the clubs, believe it or not. Only recently, up until 5 years ago, I would hear Dead Can Dance and Cocktail Twins being played at the clubs. This was just in SoCal though. San Francisco, on the other hand, they would actually host nights and would make Dead Can Dance night or Cocktail Twins night. Even up to this day, I often felt somewhat disconnected here in LA because, one, there wasn't that many 18 and over clubs, and two, there was a part in the mid-2000s that I remember that the scene was slowly dying. There wasn't that many bands at all. There were a lot of the hipsters started taking over. So I think that's why Ethereal kind of started getting a little bit more popular during the mid 2000s. And it makes me sad because Ethereal in the 90s was very, very prominent, and it was at its peak. You had record labels such as Cleopatra, Project Records, and even 4AD that played such an important role in the community. And that's where you have your flowy dresses, your bell sleeves, your velvet and lace. That was all inspired because of ethereal music. Your long flowy hair, and it just, even here, like a lot of the fashion sensibilities, ethereal just was not popular at all. And now, in the present moment, I'm starting to notice it's slowly but surely gaining some resurgence, because people are listening to it a lot more or discovering it. So actually makes me really happy that more BabyBats are actually discovering what ethereal is. There's so much more to ethereal music. There's just not only just your typical ethereal bands, but there's also other subgenres like neoclassical, dream pop. Ethereal itself is very much inspired by sadness, history, literature, romance, poetry. It really embodies poetry within those melodies and in these songs. Yes, it's very dramatic too, which is another reason why I love it. And even just stepping into a goth club and seeing candelabrias or just a fog machine, and then just dancing and like just twirling creates an atmosphere. It also just takes you to different realms and different spaces. It is the reason why I felt like I was home, is because I'm just typically a sad person. Discovering ethereal music, for me, not only did I feel like I found home, but most of the time, a lot of times, I tend to feel very numb. Music itself and the music that I tend to listen to makes me feel human. And I don't know if anybody can resonate to that. Very much holds a very dear, we hold on to it, and we're very passionate about the subculture oftentimes because the music made us feel like we found a place to call home. So if you're a BabyBat and if you're interested I am making a part 2 out of this, but it's gonna be more informational. This is my story, how I got into ethereal music. I hope you guys liked this video and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.